I've been a fan of Tactics Ogre a long time, and I've honestly played the game to death. I mean, why wouldn't I? With its dark and brooding story and awesome gameplay, it's by far one of the greatest tactical RPGs of all time. Many North American gamers never got a chance to play it though. The PlayStation version kind of sucked, but I thought the PSP version was actually pretty good. Even that one was overshadowed though. When we all got our first taste of Tactics Ogre Reborn through the trailer released in the summer of 2022, I was actually really surprised. How could Square Enix deliver a more polished game than was already available, I thought to myself. Well, the promotional materials make it pretty clear that Reborn features a lot of changes from Let Us Cling Together. So even though I've already reviewed Tactics Ogre, and all the other Ogre battle games for that matter, I wanted to make sure to give this one a go. But is it worth playing for both old school fans and newcomers to the game, and does it live up to the hype? I decided to find out. When you first fire up Tactics Ogre Reborn, you're treated to the game's intro in widescreen for the first time, and you can really get a good sense for how much better it looks right away. I covered the story synopsis in greater depth in my original review, but all you really need to know is it follows Denim, a resistance fighter whose home was devastated during a civil war that tore his country apart. The event greatly influenced the way he looks at the world, and he's grown very close to his elder sister Kachua. Loyalty, vengeance, and sadness all play a major role here, and the story epitomizes dark, twisted depravity and gritty reality. Let's just say it isn't Earthbound's story. The new character portraits were really nice and give you a much better sense of what the characters actually look like. Now, it is worth mentioning that all the main storyline dialogue is fully voice acted, and I think the quality is actually quite high. The dialogue itself seems to be lifted entirely from the PSP version, or is at least very similar to it from my recollections. And if they weren't going to redo the entire script, I think this was the best decision, because that was by far the best localized script up to this point. Outside of the storyline segments, the new widescreen view really shines in the battles. So much so, in fact, that it's hard to articulate how much. The original game had such narrow width that it was often hard to understand unit placement very well, and it was tough to calculate and plan your moves. But now, you're often able to see virtually everything at the same time, and this is one of the remake's best innovations. Also, there's a new trajectory prediction system that makes it way easier to ensure that long-range attackers can hit their targets. The menu system here is also extremely intuitive, and I really loved how the unit turn order is displayed at the bottom of the screen. This is a godsend when it comes to arming the player with more information, and helps them plan their moves accordingly. It even displays statistical information and terrain-specific details to the tile you're hovering over. Even the shops have been improved to provide a smoother experience. One of the biggest changes in Tactics Ogre Reborn concerns the leveling system. Unlike the PSP version, where classes themselves leveled up, Tactics Ogre Reborn revamps the experience system to allow units to level up individually. I think I preferred this framework better too, because it allowed me greater customization options and didn't lock me mentally into thinking I had to keep the same classes. Now there's not much risk in tweaking your units often and altering your approach on the fly. You still gain new skills as you level, and the player is given full control to assign up to 4 skills to a unit at a time. There are 4 types of skills: action, support, auto, and special skills, and lots of different builds to utilize. The coolest thing in my mind is that the skills themselves can be upgraded with frequent use and level ups, and upgrading skills linked to weapons can also make you learn special finishing moves that consume magic points but do incredible amounts of damage. Remember that old childhood lesson, no takebacks? Well, in Tactics Ogre Reborn, there are takebacks. That's right, through the Chariot Tarot system, the player can go back through previous actions taken on the battlefield, replay them from any turn of their choice, and keep the more preferable result. True, it does allow you to cheese parts of the game to some extent, but it also alleviates some of the frustration that comes with it. And I'll just be honest, this is a tough game that can be really intimidating to newcomers, so I can understand it. The soundtrack for Tactics Ogre Reborn deserves some attention as well. In fact, a lot of attention. From the outset, you're treated to the old school theme, but in totally remastered fashion. Original composer Hitoshi Sakimoto was brought back into the fold to direct the soundtrack in this version too, which adds a few new pieces not in the original game. As always, my favorites besides the main theme are Three Kings and Revolt, but man are there a lot of great ones. The rearranged music has been praised copiously by other reviewers, and I can totally see why. The raw emotion of the game really comes out in its music, and the orchestral style really hits home. In my mind, this soundtrack rises to the level of the remastered music in Live Alive and the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, so it really is impressive. For my money, this is the best aspect of Tactics Ogre Reborn by far, and even if you played the game before, it's worth revisiting for this factor alone. I only have two minor gripes about Tactics Ogre Reborn. The first is that the character sprites don't look as clean and pixelated as I would have liked, and it appears they applied a filter to the edges to give them a more modern appearance. I wasn't a fan of how this was handled in the Grandia remaster either, but maybe it's just me. I don't think they're quite as bad here as they were there, but I think the sprites could have been upscaled a bit to retain the old appearance. And hey, maybe I'm the only one with this complaint, but I think they could have looked a bit better than they do. The only other issue I have is the font style. I really dislike the all caps font because I think it gives the game too much of a comic book feel. And I also think it gives the unfortunate impression that all conversations between characters are just shouting matches, which doesn't really fit the game's narrative too well. Sure, it's the same thing as it was on the PSP, but I think it should have been redone for this version. What do you guys think about this though? Am I off base with either of these critiques? Let me know in a comment below. Tactics Ogre Reborn features lots of odds and ends updates and improvements, and I'd spend too much time covering them all, but one I wanted to cover for sure was the panning camera. Instead of being locked into the same isometric view, which often obscures objects and units, you can swing the camera around to capture the grid in a fully overhead perspective. Sure, it isn't fully rotatable like in some other games, but this is really a great ease of life feature in general that prevents headaches and empowers the player to make movement and ability decisions. Obsessive-compulsive completionists will also find a huge challenge in the Palace of the Dead, a 114-floor bonus dungeon that first becomes available in Chapter 4. It's a lengthy, grueling challenge that will excite the most hardcore players, but casual players can just decide not to do it all the same. Spending 100+ hours to complete it isn't outside the realm of possibility, so any attempt to do this is at your own risk, to your health too. It was a great way to pack some replay value into the game that's also optional. It really reminded me of the Star Ocean games in that respect because they had bonus dungeons like this too. So is Tactics Ogre Reborn the best way to play the game? Absolutely yes, 100%, no doubt about it. Its story is menacing all these years later and so well delivered thanks to the new voice acting. The gameplay emphasizes creativity and customization in a fun way, and the breathtaking soundtrack adds greatly to the game's distinct lore and raw emotion. All factors combine to make it the complete package. In fact, it might be the definitive tactical RPG. Also, of all the Square Enix remakes, this is clearly one of the best in my mind. It really makes the game worth revisiting, even for RPG enthusiasts that played it in the past. It makes me hopeful that Square Enix will decide to do the same with some of their other neglected titles. If you ask me, Bahamut Lagoon and Treasure of the Rudras are perfect candidates for future remakes just like this one. While I don't think Tactics Ogre Reborn is a good game at all to recommend to novice RPG fans, it will certainly please longtime fans of the Ogre Battle games, and RPG fans in general that missed out on it the first few times around. Pick it up from the links in the description section and give it a go. So what did you think about Tactics Ogre Reborn? Is it the greatest tactical RPG ever? Let me know in a comment below. Like, subscribe, and click the bell for more retro gaming content, and if you like the videos I produce, please consider supporting my channel as a Patreon patron or through YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.